Hello all. I wanted to talk about something which I've never really touched on this channel, and that is the concept of the burden of proof. This is something that comes up a lot in philosophical conversations, specifically about religion and the afterlife and God and things like that. I have a particular stance on this which reflects my love-hate relationship with philosophy. That's a bit odd because this is a philosophy channel, but there's this saying in philosophy, which is the burden of proof is on the person making the claim. I don't want to espouse some sort of anti-intellectual position here because it's true that our universe, so far as we can tell, mostly follows the laws of logic such that when you're arguing something, you can construct a syllogism around it and come to that conclusion. That is true. But one of my big issues with philosophy is that it assumes a lot of things sometimes, specifically in the more establishment places in philosophy, sometimes assume things in their premises, and a lot of times I think they mix up ethical claims, moral claims, those sorts of things with factual claims or logical claims. So when you're saying the burden of proof is on the person making the claim, I would argue that that's not a natural conclusion. If I lived in a society in which everyone thought that when someone claims something, no matter how outlandish, we have to meet together as a group and determine the validity of it, could you really tell me that that's wrong? Could you really tell me that that belief is incorrect? I don't think so. I think it's a moral and an ethical claim. I'll give you an example to demonstrate this. Granted, this is a very absurd example, and it's ridiculous, but I think it'll prove the concept that I'm trying to convey here. Not necessarily prove it, but it'll at least demonstrate it. Let's say you're at the grocery store and you're shopping, and someone runs up to you. You recognize this person as the chief of the fire department, and they say, "Your house is on fire." There's a couple of things that I think should ultimately determine the burden of proof, and that is credibility and whether what the person is saying has immediate or even eventual importance. In this scenario, this is the chief of the fire department. So far as you can tell, they don't really have a reason to lie about what they're saying. So that has some credibility. And as far as importance, that's tremendously important. Your house is on fire. You might have any number of things in that house that you need to save, and you might need to communicate that information to somebody who can help. So that's very important. You're not really going to remain agnostic about whether that's true until you're presented some more evidence. Let's think of another scenario. You're at the grocery store again. Someone walks up to you and they say, "Hey, my house is on fire right now, and if you pay me $100, I'll let you come see it." Well, what are the factors of credibility and importance in that scenario? What are those like? Well, the person doesn't seem particularly alarmed that their house is on fire. That's suspicious. So it doesn't seem to have a lot of credibility. Why would the person be asking you to pay to come see their house on fire? And also, as long as there are no people or animals in the house, and you're just a regular person who's not on the fire department, that really doesn't have any importance to you, because it's just stuff in there, and the people who could save the stuff are not you. Even if you could get there faster than the fire department, it would be dangerous for you to even attempt to put the house out, because you're not saving anyone after all. It's not important. You would just toss it out because it's not credible. I think that's how the burden of proof should basically work. And even that is a little iffy because credibility, importance, these are subjective concepts that you can't necessarily have a working rule for all the time. But again, that's sort of my problem with this saying. Think about the context in which this saying is usually observed. Religion. The burden of proof is on the person making the claim. Why is that? Someone comes to you and says, "There's a God out there, and unless you worship this God, you will spend eternity in torment." Would that be important to you were it true? Of course it would. I don't think many people want to spend eternity in torment, but let's think about the credibility. Lots of different people make lots of different claims about lots of different gods. And do you usually see proof of that? Not really. There are so many different claims about so many different types of gods. And if you're going to say, no, mine is the real one, well, then I would say that the burden of proof is on you in that scenario. Not trying to show any disrespect to people who are religious, but I think from a more objective standpoint, insofar as anyone can be objective, which none of us can, because again, the world is messy, but from that standpoint, or closer to that standpoint, I think that's generally how things are. So, yes, in that scenario, the burden of proof is on the person making the claim, but I would argue that it's for external reasons, not just in and of itself being true. I don't think that saying is applicable to all scenarios relating to the burden of proof. What do you think about the burden of proof? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, allons-y.